Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy Luke here for our DFS live stream, of course, for the Charles Schwab Challenge. We got round one in the books, round two coming for us on Friday, and going to get you prepared for the single round slate. So, going to talk through the weather tomorrow, of course, some of the stats from round one, our player pool projections, and of course, any live questions that you have. I can see a few of you already down in the chat, so that is always great to see. We have Robert who's talking up Nick Taylor. He was talking about him in the live stream. If you remember, he was the Canadian that Robert was behind. And oh boy, did he have a huge day. Obviously, almost was first round leader, ended up splitting for that first place there. Overall, can't complain about the day. I had plenty of Nick Taylor in my lineups, but like you said, an easy fade for round two, probably, right? Anytime you have somebody put up that ceiling performance, it's pretty tough to ask them to do it again, particularly when it's Nick Taylor. No offense to the Canadian. I don't think we expected him to shoot, 4 or 5 under par today. So great to see that he had that start, Robert. I see Steven is down there in chat as well. Hopefully you guys are doing well on this Thursday evening. So let's go ahead and hop right into, first off, the round one, and then some of the weather here for the second round. And you'll see that it played right about how it did last year. Last year, the scoring average was about plus 0.3, and today it played to a plus 0.8 average. Now, if we split this by the wave, you can see there was a slight difference between the morning and the afternoon wave, but it wasn't anything drastic, right? You're talking about close to 0.2 of a stroke at most, and the wind, it actually was easier in the afternoon, right? The wind actually kind of died down as the day went on. So we expected it to maybe be a little bit easier in the morning wave. Of course, the wind in Texas tends to be a little bit volatile, right? We can't even guess what it's going to blow in the next hour, let alone what it's going to do 5 or 6 hours from now. So just maybe a learning lesson from round one, right? The forecast might say one thing and then another thing might happen. So just foreshadowing what we see here, right? On Friday, it's a relatively flat board, right? Not much wind to speak of, no matter when you're teeing off. So in the morning, it's 3 to 6 miles an hour of sustained winds. In the afternoon, right, 2 to 5 miles an hour of sustained winds. So in terms of playing conditions, I would expect them to be even better than what we saw today because, as you can see on the wind graph here, right, it was in the 20 range for much of the day. The report that they have on here, and these are all reported gusts, actually show that the wind was worse in the afternoon. But like I said, the scoring average was easier in the afternoon wave. So clearly it was easier for whatever reason. Maybe it wasn't the wind. Maybe it was the firmness out there. Maybe it was just how long the golf course was playing. Sometimes it's really hard to say, but I'd say the one learning lesson from a round one would be there's not going to be a huge difference between the morning and the afternoon wave. And certainly when the wind conditions are as flat as they're expected to be here on Friday, I wouldn't expect a huge difference between the morning and the afternoon wave as well. So hopping into the player pool now, knowing that we don't really have to worry about weather all too much, let's talk about some of my favorite plays on the board. So let me go ahead and zoom this out here. Go ahead and bring it onto full screen on the live stream. There we go. And let's talk through some of my favorite plays. So we're not going to talk about everyone here. I'm going to try and make this closer to a 30-minute stream. So let's talk about my favorite play on the board, and that's going to be Jordan Spieth. I mean, obviously going into the week, I was extremely bullish on his chances, but even more so after today. I mean, he shot 1 under, but it could have very easily been something in the 5 to 6 under par range. I mean, first off, he had 2 misses for par for less than 5 feet. I mean, he shouldn't be missing those putts. And if he's putting up a ceiling performance, he surely won't be missing those putts. And more than that, he had 3 lip outs. One of them was a chip. He had 2 lip outs for putts from right around 25 feet. 1 or 2 of those drops, he doesn't, screw up those 5-foot par putts. I mean, he's the leader in the clubhouse as of right now, right? So the ball striking is there. We saw that for the weeks going into the major championship there at the PGA. And even at the PGA championship last week, the approach play was there, and more importantly, the off-the-tee play was there. So we already know the stats are otherworldly. That's why he was so popular going into the week. Where's oh, there it is. Scroll down. I was like, where are my stats at? What's going on there? You see he's gaining a ton of strokes on approach, close to half a stroke per round off the tee, doing his normal thing around the green. It's all about the flat stick. And the one thing that really stood out to me from his post-round interview is he said that he was striking the ball beautifully on the greens, that he just wasn't, reading the greens correctly. And there's one thing that he's done well in his career. It's putt at Colonial Country Club. I mean, the guy's first off one here is a print machine, posting top 10 finishes pretty much every single time he tees it up here. I think he's going to figure it out sooner than later. And He said just as much during his interview. He said if he plays just like he did today, a low round is coming. And I mean, obviously the stats back it up, but if the guy's telling us that same exact thing himself, I mean, he truly believes it's going to happen. Would not surprise me if he just absolutely blew the doors off this thing tomorrow morning. I mean, shot something in, like I said, the 5 to 6 under par range. That is well within his range of outcomes. Now, given that there's some guys at 4 under par, that might not actually be the lead after tomorrow, of course, especially considering that the conditions should be ripe for the taking. But nonetheless, I see him getting himself back into contention. I mean, he's in the top 25 as it stands, but just the numbers are outrageous for Jordan Spieth. They have been for quite some time. Victor Hovland also struck it pretty well today. I'd say his issue for the most part was around the green. He got out of position a few times, like you're inevitably going to at this golf course. Especially in the bunker, he just hit some poor bunker shots. And that's kind of what Victor Hovland does. Now, he kind of made up for it on hole 17. He did dunk a shot from the bunker, then ended up birdieing on 18 as well to really have a strong end to his day. So he shot 1 under par. It's the same score as a Jordan Spieth, but it didn't feel nearly as sharp as a Jordan Spieth, right? They have the same actual score at the end of the day, but Jordan Spieth's round was much more impressive than a Victor Hovland. But I'm not going to write him off. He's going to be a little bit lower owned than a Jordan Spieth will be, particularly in some of the higher dollar contests. I'd expect Jordan Spieth to be, just as popular as he was today in some of those contests, where he was upwards of 35 to even 40% owned for some of these 4-round contests. Let's go ahead and see if there's anyone down in chat. There are. So we have Stevenson, who says, appears this course is made for HV3's game. I would certainly agree. I have plenty of them in my pool. I'm pretty happy about it. And, it's just a precision golf course, right? Accurate off the tee. That's his MO. He's not very long off the tee, and hit some solid long irons. I believe I haven't checked it for quite some time, but the last time I checked his long iron stats, I mean, he was like top 30 in every category. I'd imagine that still holds to this day. So yeah, certainly agree with the golf course fit there. And Antonio says, was Harman drunk or high playing today? +7, maybe both. I can't really tell you. You're going to see blow-up rounds from pretty much any player in the world. I mean, Dustin Johnson, right? He'll shoot 80 from time to time. It's hard to say, right? Sometimes it's that they woke up not feeling so well. Sometimes it's physical, and sometimes it's mental, right? They're a little bit checked out. Potentially something's happening in their personal life. It's really hard to say. I don't think he was drunk or high. Obviously, I know you're kidding there with that, but he played like it. That's for sure. Shooting +7 at a tour event, even with an over par average, is far from ideal. I would certainly agree with you there. That is him and Tom Hoagie. Tom Hoagie shot +5 today. Maybe both of them went out to the bar last night. They were out till like 3, 4 a.m. Didn't realize they had a tee time tomorrow. I don't know, something like that. Wouldn't surprise me. They seem like 2 cats that would hang out, Brian Harman and a Tom Hoagie. But nonetheless, we move on. They're probably missing the cut. We'll leave it at that. Maybe they'll go out tonight too, right? I mean, they have nothing to lose at this point, right? So it wouldn't surprise me if they go out there tomorrow and I kind of stink the bed. I'm going to have Tom Hoagie. So spoiler alert, Tom Hoagie is in the player pool, but Brian Harman's not. Brian Harman looked completely lost. Whereas Tom Hoagie, for his first 4 holes were treacherous, and then it was his last 2 holes that were really bad. I mean, the inner 10 holes or whatever stretch that it was, where he ended up shooting 1 under par. I mean, solid for Tom Hoagie, right? He had 12 holes or 10 holes, whatever it ended up being, that were pretty damn solid. It was just the rest of them absolutely were dog shit for Tom Hoagie. So there's at least a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Brian Harman the entire day was a train wreck. It was happening in slow motion too. He couldn't hit a shot for his life. But moving on from that, let's talk about some of these 9K guys. I do like Sungji Im. He's an even par. He just couldn't buy a putt for his life. I mean, just every single hole putting himself to that 10 to 20 foot range. On the front 9, he had 8 birdie looks in his first 9 holes. He made none of them. He didn't make his first birdie until his 10th hole of the day, which was the hole number 1, the easiest hole in the golf course. And then he didn't make one after that. He was just putting himself on every single green, playing the most boring version of golf that you can think of. I mean, hitting the fairway, hitting the center of the green, and 2 putting on every single hole. And I know it doesn't look sexy in terms of the leaderboard, right? Or in the fantasy scoring department. He didn't go out there and make many birdies today, but he's in position. All he has to do is make a few putts. And I mean, the ball striking was head and shoulders above pretty much everyone else in the field. I mean, he was doing his normal thing with his precision, hitting a ton of fairways, hitting a ton of greens. And that's a good recipe for success. That's a repeatable and sustainable way to have your success on the golf course. So we'll have a little bit of exposure there. I'm not a huge fan of Sam Burns. Sam Burns, he played all right. He hit some greens. He's 1 over par, so it's not like he's played himself out of the tournament. But I just like guys like Victor Hovland, Jordan Spieth a little bit more. And like I said, Sun GM just hitting the ball beautifully at this point. So any type of rust that we thought that Sanjay might have had pretty much isn't there, except with the putter, right? It's kind of lingered around, but the putter, hopefully he goes out there, figured it out this afternoon after his round, and is able to go out there tomorrow afternoon and get things rolling. I guess we should talk about Justin Thomas and Scotty Scheffler, right? They're not going to be in the player pool. First off, JT looked extremely rusty today. Now, I wouldn't throw it past him, right, to go out there and shake off the rust tomorrow. But, based on his price tag, based on guys like Jordan Spieth, Victor Hovland that are almost a whole $1,000 cheaper and project, pretty much to the same level, I'm going to go that way 9 times out of 10, right? So I don't want to completely write off Justin Thomas, but he didn't look very sharp today. And Scotty Scheffler, while he did shoot 4 under par, it's not like he made a ton of birdies, right? He ended up having an extremely clean card. And I can't really say anything negative about his game other than I worry about the bent grass putting, right? The same reason I worried about him going into the week, right, was is he going to make enough putts at this golf course to actually get to a 15 to maybe even 18 under par that ends up winning this thing, right? Depends on, what we see for the next few days in terms of wind. So we'll have to see what happens with the Scotty Scheffler, but the ball striking's there. The around the green play is going to be there. It's the world number 1. I don't think anybody is doubting that. But he's not going to be in my pool, right? He's relatively chalky. I have him at the highest ownership of anybody on the slate. And like I said, I kind of worry about his upside. The putting on bent grass, and this isn't a small sample size. This is upwards of 40 rounds at this point for Scotty Scheffler. It's an issue. He doesn't make that many putts on the bent grass surface. All right, talking about the AK range now. So in terms of pricing, it's beautiful here for round 2. Guys like Jordan Spieth are significantly cheaper. Now, Victor Hovland's not that much cheaper, but the guys here in this AK range are just mispriced, right? They're at a very sweet spot in terms of fitting them into your lineup. So I like Abraham Answer. He started off really rusty, but ended up finishing at even par, ended up making 2 birdies to close. So I love having guys with momentum that finished off their day on the right foot and can potentially carry that over into the second round. Taylor Gooch started off extremely rough. In fact, was 4 over par through 5 holes. It was about as bad as it can humanly get. And he really, really turned it around. He ended up making 3 birdies on the day. After the first 4 holes, he was unbelievably good. One of the best rounds of the day through holes number 4 through 18. So if you're looking for momentum, Abraham Answer and Taylor Gooch are your guys, right? They figured it out in the middle of the rounds. If they can continue that here in round 2, you're going to want to have them in lineups. Tony Finau couldn't get anything started. So, at pretty much the entire round, he was hitting most greens. He was 2-putting in almost every single hole. The issue was he wasn't getting enough birdies to drop. So it's always the issue for Tony Finau is whether that putter is going to cooperate. And I'm always willing to take the risk on that, right? It's much harder to find somebody that actually puts themselves in birdie position than guys that can actually cash in on that, right? A lot of birdie making comes down to luck, whether the ball ends up, hitting, bouncing the right direction. You guys are putting a little bit of a crapshoot, even for some of the best putters in the world. So $8,800, if he gets a few putts to drop tomorrow, could be extremely attractive there. Daniel Berger's hurt. I kind of warned you guys about that going into the week, so I don't want to say I told you so, but by the end of his round today, every single shot was labored for Daniel Berger. And the fact that he even shot 1 over par, I think people that played him should be thankful for that. That's probably the best that he could have done. And that included an eagle on his card. So for Showdown, I would stay far clear from Daniel Berger. He's playing in the morning. He's not going to have nearly as much time with his prep team, with his trainers to actually get that back warmed up. That's one of the advantages of playing in the afternoon wave, like he was able to do today. It's also warmer in the afternoon, right? If you're dealing with lower back issues, you want it to be as warm and humid as possible outside so that you have all that mobility. He's not going to have that luxury tomorrow morning. So, if he wakes up with a stiff back, he might withdraw after a lock for all we know. That's certainly within the cards. So, for all I know, he could have withdrawn by now. If it looked like it was really hurting him there, if it hurt as much as it looked like it was hurting him, he could literally withdraw in the next half an hour to an hour. Would not surprise me. Kevin Na at -3 obviously was a core pick this week. Going pretty well. I'm going to be supporting that going forward. He's a great course fit. He's won at this golf course. He's a precision guy off the tee. The approach play has gotten better and better over the last 24 to 50 measured rounds, and the putting on bent grass is ideal. He's much better on bent grass than any other surface. So in general, a lot of things pointing up for Kevin Na. That's why we liked him going into the week, but that is certainly still the case here after he shot 3 under par today. Avoid Ryan Harmon. Like I said, he shot 7 over par today. You probably don't want to play him. Davis Riley looked pretty good. Now, the issue with him is the approach play. Like, he's extremely inconsistent. So have him down as a blank because I understand the play, but I also think it's a trap play, right? He goes out there, he gains a stroke or two approach in a single round, and he goes out there and loses 2 or 3 strokes to the round when it comes to his approach play. And for him to shoot 3 under par, gaining on approach, I don't want to say that's the best he can do because it's certainly not, right? He's a high talented player. He can shoot something like 5 or 6 under par at this golf course. It's just not as likely, right, as some of the other guys around him. I love a Jason Kokrak, for example. I love Webb Simpson, who the numbers look outrageously good at this point in the golf tournament, or even some of the guys that are a little bit cheaper in the 7K range. So I understand the play with Davis Riley. I won't be there. I think he'll be a little bit popular too. But Webb Simpson looked great today. I mean, the injury concerns look like they're far in the mirror for somebody like a Webb. The approach play is there. The accuracy off the tee is there. He made some changes to his irons this week, or I should say last week. They paid off huge at the PGA Championship and seem to continue to serve him well. So I like him there at -4. Jason Kokrak is the champion from last year, obviously likes the greens here. So I don't think you can go wrong going that way. Maverick McNeely at +1. He had a decent round, right? Kind of mediocre. Didn't play himself out of it. Surely didn't have a sharp round. So I think he'll be relatively low owned to have him at 8.1% as of right now. But I don't know what to say about him other than he has upside. He is a little bit volatile with the ball striking. So we certainly have to hope that he has one of the positive days when it comes to the approach play and the off the tee play. But the putting is going to be there. He's going to make his fair share of those 10 to 20 footers, which is what you need to get to that ceiling performance. It's just that he has to put himself in enough opportunities to take advantage, right? To make 5 or 6 birdies tomorrow. So he has to have that go his way, but hopefully he does. Have him in some 4-round stuff too. Chris Kirk, he's -4. That's incorrect. He's tied for the lead as of right now. He looked very solid with the ball striking. In fact, through his first 6 holes, he was losing to the field with his approach play. I only know because I was tracking him quite closely today. He's one of my higher exposed plays. I have like 35% of them in my GPP lineups. But he was losing on approach through about 5 or 6 holes. And then by the end of the round, he had gained over a stroke and a half on approach. So clearly he was hitting some laser beams on the second half of his round. The putting was there throughout the entire round. Through 5 holes, the only reason he was under par is because he was making a bunch of those 20 to 25 footers. And Chris Kirk with a hot putter is a scary man because from tee to green, he's going to be among the best in the entire field when it comes to his stats. So like I said, if he's gaining strokes with the putter, watch out. He's somebody who could go low. Tom Hoagie, hopefully he goes low. He needs it. He's at 5 over par, but we've seen crazier things. We've seen him shoot like 5, 6 over par tomorrow before, and then go out the next day and make the cut. In fact, what was it? Was it Pebble Beach when he won that he did? I don't think it was when he won that he did that, but it was around that same time that he ended up winning Pebble Beach. That he shot +4 on the first day, shot 6 under the next day, and then by the end of the weekend finished in the top 10. It might have been a win. It might have been that week. Either way, he's done it before. He's shown that ability, and the ball striking's there. He's number 8 in the FedEx Cup rankings for a reason. I mean, Tom Hoagie has been one of the most consistent players on the tour this year. I mean, obviously the FedEx Cup rankings reflect that, and if he's going to continue to be priced in this 7K range, I think you just have to continue to take advantage of him, right? I mean, obviously he had a rough first round. You're not always going to get a ceiling performance out of a golfer, right? Even somebody that's playing as well as a Tom Hoagie. But if he's priced in this range, right, we have to pepper that going forward. I mean, next week, if he ends up being in the 7K range of that tournament, you know I'm going to be back on him, right? Just the pedigree's there for sure. Cameron Tringale at 3 over. He had a psycho scorecard. I believe made 5 or 6 birdies on the day, get still shot +3. He's a streaky player. If you're looking for somebody in Showdown to make a bunch of birdies, he's your guy. So he'll be in the player pool. Gary Woodland, mediocre round, meh, right? He shot +2. Same thing with Justin Rose. The reason why I really like Rose, though, is that he was +5 at one point and ended up at +2. So really rebounded after a really rough start. And like I said, I like the guys with momentum, the guys that end the round on a positive note. A lot of times they're able to carry that over into the next round. And Justin Rose, on top of being a winner at this golf course, has had a ton of success here, including a second place finish, a few other top 5 finishes, and his 10 starts here around Colonial Country Club. You have Patrick Reed, who had a solid day. I mean, I'll be there. I had him going into the week. I'm not going to jump off the ship now. The approach play was pretty ridiculous today. Ricky Fowler, he started off pretty well. He shot -1. He's in the top 30 at this point. So obviously was striking the ball pretty solid. Christian Bezainhout, he had some success here in the past. He's a short plotter, more of a putting specialist than anything, which is what we're looking for at this track. You have Matthew Neesmith. He's coming in hot after qualifying for the U.S. Open on Monday. So I like that kind of momentum for him. Then McCarthy can get super hot with the putter. Kevin Kisner shot 3 over, but a lot of that was due to a double bogey on his, I believe, 17th hole of the day. Ended up having a 4-foot par putt, right? Granted, this is Kevin Kisner. I mentioned this in the Discord. I know people were probably laughing at me for saying it. I was like, Kevin Kisner 3-putted from 4 feet. And now I would be okay with that if that was Luke List. I'd be okay if I did that, right? I'm a dog shit putter. I'm used to that sort of thing happening. But Kevin Kisner doesn't 3-putt from 4 feet. Just, it doesn't happen. And that happened today. That's one of the reasons why he shot 3 over par. So if he ends up making that putt rather than butchering it and making it 3 putts, right, he's 1 over par, pretty respectable on the cut line. He'd be much higher run than 5%. Now we get him at a price discount. He's super cheap at $7,300, and he's won at this golf course before. He's finished in the top 10 multiple times, right? He obviously likes this place. So if he can get hot with the putter, he could take this place low tomorrow for sure. You have Aaron Rai, very consistent player. If you're looking for a cash play, he's probably who you should be taking a look at there. Now, Joel Damon, he was quote unquote in my player pool going into the week. He didn't make it into my 4-round stuff. Just obviously, you can only play so many players. Ended up having 43 players in my pool. And he was probably the 44th on my list that ended up getting the first one that ended up getting knocked out there. But I like him here for Showdown. He's a volatile player. You know, you'll see him go super low at an event at least once out of the 4 rounds. So potentially that's his round here on Friday. Rory Sabatini at 1 over par. He can get super hot with the putter, so I like that look. Eric Van Rooyen, he was 2 under par at one point today. And that was early on. That was when the lead was at 3 under par. So I thought he had a chance at first round leader. He was my only first round leader bet this week. I bet him. It was 75-1. I put $50 on it, and obviously it didn't happen, right? But he's a volatile player. The reason why I bet him for first round leader is that when he gets it cooking, I mean, he makes birdies in bunches. I mean, we've seen it at the 3M Open where he's contended. Ended up winning it this past season. You've seen it for first round leader multiple times over the last 2-3 months. You know, he puts himself in contention for that because of his high upside, because of that volatility that he has. So I do like him at $7,100. Catch up on chat down here real quick. So 1 second. You can see Nick's on the hoagie train. But let's go through these in order here. Antonio says, thoughts on Answer or Finau both couldn't putt today. I'd go Answer's way, just because Answer actually did make a few putts. Granted, a lot of them for par. He made a few 12 and 15 footers for par, actually. So the fact that he even shot even par was probably even being a little bit optimistic. We should probably be pretty thankful for that. But if he cleans up the ball striking, right, you know, he was actually making those putts. So I would side towards Answer. I like both of them, just because Finau, you know, he hasn't made a putt for quite some time. Like, us asking him to make putts is kind of asking a lot. Whereas, you know, asking Answer to hit the ball well, you know, he did that last week. He did it all 4 rounds at the PGA Championship. So I would say Abraham Answer. Cash says most of the guys who played well excel on bent. Yeah, I agree for sure. Even the guys that shot like even par to -1, a lot of them were guys that had a positive on the bent grass stuff. So definitely a sharp take there. I think there's a few exceptions, like a Scotty Scheffler that obviously played well despite not being the best on bent grass. But there's always going to be exceptions to the rule, obviously. Wilson says Scotty Scheffler. Yes, Scotty had a pretty decent round. Nick is on the hoagie trend, like I said. I hope so. You're probably going to need like a 3-4 under round from him to make the cut. I would assume because the weather's pretty nice tomorrow, the cut's going to be 1 over par, maybe 2 over par, right? If it still ends up playing difficult for some reason, if the tour staff, you know, puts a few devilish pin locations out there, maybe it's 2 over par, but he's going to have that good round. So hopefully he does for me and your sake. I know you have quite a bit of them. I have 25%, I believe. So I'd also like him to make the cut. Wilson says, "Who do you think? What do you think about Kevin Na? How do you think he's going to do tomorrow?" So I like him. He shot 3 under par today. To be honest, I'd expect him to do something very similar tomorrow. I don't think he's going to shoot 6 or 7 under par. I don't think he's going to shoot over par either. I think it's just going to be him picking and prodding this golf course apart. That's kind of what he does. He's accurate off the tee. He hits a bunch of greens. And when he's playing his best golf, he has that magic flat stick working, right? He's making a bunch of those 20 to 30 footers. So for him in Showdown to be an optimal play, you need him to make a bunch of those 20 to 30 footers. But yeah, I'd expect something in that 2 to 3 under range. Matthew says, "Man, round 1-4, I can't see it." You worded that really weird, Matthew. So I'm just going to say the prize picks were hard to watch today. Gooch and Fowler, will you help us with some prize picks props for tomorrow when they post? Yeah, absolutely. Definitely going to have a video up for that, but work on the wording there a little bit. It was a little bit of a word jumble there. And Matthew says those prize won't. Wow. Your wording here is killing me a little bit, Matthew. You said those prize picks, 1-hole props were cool to see. I liked them. I didn't have all that much success with them. They tend to do that after they know the golf course a little bit. So I would expect to see a lot of those tomorrow, Matthew. So because they have the data after round 1, the reason why hole number 1 worked well is it was right around a 50-50 birdie rate. In the morning, it was a 45% birdie rate. In the afternoon, it was right around a 56% birdie rate, which I would expect them to continue that tomorrow, right? Because it was a 50-50 rate. Now just let me look at Data Golf, actually. Let me see if there was anything comparable, because I don't think there was. Just looking at what they have here, the next highest birdie rate I have is a 17%, 24. So it's getting a little bit closer. I would imagine that they keep the hole 1 prop, that they probably don't add something for anything else, because the highest percentage I have right now is an 18% birdie rate on any of the other holes. Now, if they wanted to do one for hole number 5, that 481-yard par 4, it has a, let's see, 30% of people bogey, 8% bogey on birdie. So maybe not so much. So I don't know. Probably it's just going to be hole number 1 there, but that was pretty fun. I agree there. And Wilson says, Matt Jones. Yeah, Matt Jones, I have my eye on him because he's great on bent grass. So yeah, we'll talk about him at $7,000. He had a pretty decent day today. Might have a pretty decent day tomorrow. Robert says, Hoagie kind of shocked you today, but I agree he can turn it around tomorrow. I'm not even shocked by anything at this point in golf. I mean, there's guys that'll model perfectly that go out there, shoot 80 round 1. And then there's guys like Gsluke, for example, that miss 6 of 7 cuts going into an event and then win it, right? So nothing shocks me at this point when it comes to golf. But I do agree he'll turn it around tomorrow. Nick says, I'm driving that Hoagie train with that lineup you have. Yeah, Nick, by the way, was in first place the 50K GPP for quite some time today. So yeah, hopefully Hoagie can turn it around. Nick definitely has a huge lineup working around it. And Matthew says, I heard weather will be best tomorrow compared to the weekend's weather. Thoughts? So just go to the beginning of this live stream. I talk about it in full detail. So if you go right around like the 3-4 minute mark, I give all my thoughts on that, Matthew. So just go and check that out. I covered that quite extensively. And Wilson says, Matt Jones quite again. Yeah, we'll talk about him, man. I definitely like Matt Jones on the slate. All right, let's continue down a little bit further. So Dylan Fratelli, I liked how he played today. I have him in like 4-round stuff. He just was all with a putter. Just the ball striking has to be there for me to think that it's going to be sustainable going forward. So in terms of my 4-round stuff, I hope he proves me wrong, but I don't know how sustainable his skill set looks right now. Lucas Herbert, Alex Smalley, both really high upside plays, high birdie or better percentages, aggressive putters, guys that you're looking for in Showdown, right? These young up-and-coming Korn Ferry Tour graduates are the exact type of plays that you're looking for, because first off, they have the mindset to go out there and make a lot of birdies. Every single course on the Korn Ferry Tour is an absolute birdie fest. And they also have the desire, right? The young up-and-comers, they're not these 30, 40-year-olds that, if they miss a cut, so be it, right? They've kind of resigned to that fact. These young kids, even 1-2 over par, they're obviously on the cut line as of right now. They're going to battle their heart out tomorrow to go out there and try to make that cut. So, obviously incentive, when it comes to these players, it's good to make sure that the incentive for them aligns with the better, right? With what you want them to do, right? Which is to go out there and have a decent round tomorrow. Whereas a Brian Harman at 7 over par, who's in his 40s, probably couldn't give a shit whether he makes the cut or not here, right? It's not going to impact his paycheck all too much. Would not surprise me if he just packs it up tomorrow, right? Whereas, somebody like a Lucas Herbert, Alex Smalley, right? They're going to have their head in the game. David Lipsky, I like him at $7,000. He's a solid play at 1 over par. I worry about the bent grass putting splits. That's probably the one thing that I'd have to hold against him, but he's a high upside play. We've seen him in the first round leader conversation in quite a few events. Second place at the Palmetto Championship towards the, beginning of last year or last season. Whatever the case, last time we were at the Palmetto Championship, David Lipsky, another positional golf course, played very well. So anytime we're at a golf course like this, I'm going to have my eye on him. Adam Long was a core pick. Makes sense because of his driving accuracy that he played well. So hopefully he can continue that. Russell Knox looks back to his old ways, which is always intriguing. So I like what we're seeing there. And it's not going to be windy tomorrow. Obviously, when it's windy, he tends to shine, tends to kind of become a premium when it comes to our Showdown content. But even in some relatively benign conditions, I like his chances to go out there and have a relatively solid round. Kevin Streelman, he shot 2 over, nothing flashy, right? But somebody who can get hot with the putter from time to time. So I'll be there in hopes that he gets super hot there. Matthias Schwab, you got to play a Schwab at the Charles Schwab Challenge, right? Jokes aside, but he's a very solid approach player. Going to get hot with the putter as well. Matt Jones, I promised we'd talk about him, Wilson, okay? He's here at $6,800. Great bent grass putting splits. He's at even par right now. Now, obviously, he's not in contention. He's not doing anything flashy right now, but kind of like Cash was talking about earlier, these guys that are solid on bent grass have shown that ability to this point. So if you're going to buy into that type of narrative, which I certainly am, I've done that with my player pool to this point, buy into somebody like Matt Jones. He's the poster child of somebody like that. Peter Monotti is always due for one really low round at a golf course, and he's 2 over par, right? He needs a solid round to make the cut tomorrow. So he has the incentive to go out there, try and take it low, and time and time again, he cashes in one of these rounds, right? Now, he's not going to have 2 ceiling rounds in any one event. If he does, he's almost going to win the Sanderson Farms like he did last year, but we'll see if he has it tomorrow. That'd be pretty nice for us in Showdown. We also have Austin Smotherman. He was 3 under par on last check. Now, this spreadsheet was put together before the round ended, so I have no idea what he ended up shooting in his last 2 holes, but in either circumstance, he's shown that the bent grass putting splits weren't any type of an aberration. I mean, went out there, was able to make plenty of putts today. The ball striking numbers are on another level when it comes to an Austin Smotherman. So not a surprise that he had the round that he did. I'll certainly be going back that way. Kurt Kitayama shot 1 over. His metrics look great over the last 24 rounds. So I'll still be going that way. Even if 1 over par round, right, isn't anything great, but it also wasn't horrible, right? He kept his round together. So if you just can clean it up a little bit tomorrow, maybe shoot something in that 4 to 5 under par range. Scott Stallings loves positional golf courses. You have success at the Players Championship, Valero Texas Open, and then now he's having success here at the Charles Schwab Challenge. So not really a surprise if you ask me. You can take a few shots on a Chad Ramey, a Nick Taylor. I'm not going to have them in my pool, particularly Nick Taylor, because of the ownership. I think this 3% might actually be a little bit low because of his position on the leaderboard. People are going to want to play some Nick Taylor tomorrow for sure. I got Kramer Hickok. I like him because he's a Texas guy. He's had success in the state in the past, and he prefers these positional courses. He's not very long off the tee. He's more of an approach play specialist, can get hot with the putter from time to time. So hopefully he can do that here on Friday. We have Adam Svensson. Svensson's played some solid golf to this point. He was even par on last check. Got to get a hot putter, though, right? He's going to put himself in position like we saw today. Just has to cash in on enough opportunities. And the last guy I have is Robert Streb. Robert Streb was 3 over par. He's great on bent grass. He was the dead minimum going into the week. I think he's going to be a super sneaky play, right? He's going to be, I'm at like 0.6% owned. Might actually come in lower owned than that in reality. But he's a precision guy. He's played well at the RSM Classic. Was it the American Express where he got out to an early lead? Just a lot of these shorter golf courses is where you see him really poke his head out, and would not surprise me to see him shoot something like 5-6 under par. He gets nuclear hot with that putter. It tends to do it in a hurry. So we'll catch him on chat, then hop into some strategy, and then talk about some lineups. So let me go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll talk about some of the questions. Let's see what we got. We got Wilson that says Sam Ryder, he did okay. What did he shoot? He shot like 1 over par, right? Let me double check on that for you. Because I don't hate Sam Ryder as a play. I know his course history here is not ideal. He's missed a bunch of cuts, so that's why I didn't play him in my 4-round stuff. But he shot 1 under par. It's even better than I expected. So, yeah, I could see playing a Sam Ryder. The one thing about Sam Ryder is that he has a lot of holeouts. It's not really something that we can quantify, but this year, I know he's over 22 holeouts on the 2021-2022 season, and he leads by like 6 or 7 holeouts over the number 2 player on tour. So, of course, holeouts are how you get an extra 8 to 10 points on a showdown slate. If he does that tomorrow, you're going to want to have him in your lineups. So I don't hate the play. I don't know if I'll be there myself, but I certainly don't hate the play. And Cash says, why doesn't the DP Tour have two holes cut on every green? I'm not going to comment. I'm just going to laugh. I don't want to get in trouble on YouTube. And Robert Babb says, thanks, dude. I'm off. Go Flames, go. Go Flames. I'm not a huge hockey guy, but the Penguins lost. So at this point, I'll just root whoever you guys are. So we go ahead. We'll bring over DraftKings now. Bring up DraftKings. All right, let's talk through a few lineups. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make a GPP lineup together, and then, of course, a cash lineup. And the point here is just to talk through the thought process, right? Not necessarily give you guys a lineup. If you want to play the lineup, go ahead. I'm sure it's going to be duped like 7 or 8 times. So probably not the highest EV play if you go ahead and enter these lineups, but just more for educational purposes, right? Just to get an idea of actually, the kind of thoughts or just thought process, right, I'm going through when making a lineup. So let's talk through a GPP build. So for a large field GPP, assuming the 20, 30,000 entry GPP, you're definitely going to want to differentiate yourself. But I'm going to have a ton of lineups in that GPP with a Jordan Spieth. So he's going to be extremely chalky, but let's go ahead and talk through a lineup taking somebody that's super chalky. So we have him at $9,800 for a second man in. Going to try and differentiate myself slightly. Take somebody that's maybe not super chalky. So let's go with a Taylor Gooch at $8,900. For a third man in, we probably want to live in this 8K range. Again, we probably don't want to take a super chalky player. So I think going with the Jason Kokrak, who's maybe going to be in that middle range in terms of ownership, makes quite a bit of sense. We have $7,700, so we can probably take another 8K guy. So I wouldn't hate taking a Billy Horschel. He's going to be a really sneaky play. But if we can fit an Abraham Answer, I mean, if we could fit a Sanjay M, I'd love to do it, but I don't think we're going to be able to. I mean, let's see what it looks like, right? Can't hurt anything just trying a few things with the lineup. So let's put Sanjay M in there. That puts us at $7,000. And ideally, I'd like to take somebody towards the middle of the 7K range. So let's go ahead and see what that would look like, right? We could take a Ricky Fowler. I think Ricky Fowler makes some sense. At $7,600, I would like a Gary Woodland. I think that's a great price tag on Gary. Yeah, in fact, it's too good of a price tag to pass up there. So let's go ahead and put him in the lineup, and that puts us at $6,300. Now, because we're going to be forced to take somebody towards the bottom of the board, that makes me much less worried about a duplicate, right? You're talking about 0.2 to 1% ownership on pretty much all of the plays down here. So even if we take a Jordan Spieth, only 1% of maybe the 22% of lineups that have a Jordan Spieth are going to have that combination, let alone guys like a Taylor Gooch who should be right around like 10% owned, or Jason Kokrak or a Sanjay M are probably in that same type of range. So if we take anybody in this range, I feel pretty confident about us being unique. So let's go ahead and just plug in the best play on the board, which a few people I'd consider here. I mean, down at $6,100, we talked about Robert Streb. Doc Redman, probably not the worst play on the slate. At $6,300, we have Kramer Hickok. I talked about him a little bit earlier. And you can consider even taking Wyndham Clark. He had a pretty decent day today. But we're going to take Kramer Hickok. I talked about his familiarity in Texas, the fact that he's all about these precision golf courses, more about the longer courses. And this would be a perfect GPP build. It's got a piece of chalk in it, right? That to me is going to be unavoidable for the second round, but it's certainly going to be a unique lineup, barring the fact that it's on this live stream and somebody's probably going to steal the lineup. So if it weren't for that, it'd probably be one of the only ones entered in the large field GPP. But that's what I'm thinking for one of those large field contests. Now let's do a cash lineup. So like I said, in a GPP, we got to consider ownership, but in cash, not really our mindset at all. We're just trying to take the highest projected plays on the slate and move on from there. And for cash, I try to be as balanced as humanly possible. I try to not take 2 guys in the 10K range, try to avoid that studs and duds type of approach, just to get that high median projection. So for me, Going to be focusing on guys like a Max Homa, for example, who should be chalky. Love a guy like a Jordan Spieth in this lineup. In terms of the 8K range, Kevin Na would be a great play in this type of lineup. Webb Simpson, I mean, he's looked great to this point. We have $7,300. Let's see, we can go to Bazane-Hoot if we wanted to. Bazane-Hoot is a very consistent player, and at $7,200, not the best options. I will attest. These guys at 7,200 are not the best. So let's go ahead and spend down from a Webb Simpson because I don't like our options there. Let's go down. Let's take a Chris Kirk. That puts us at 74. I'm going to feel a lot better about our options here. And we can wrap her up with either a Neesmith or a Rye, and we're going to go with a Neesmith there. So in this lineup, our cheapest guy is $7,400. We have two guys at that price tag. Most expensive is $9,800. So of course, a very balanced lineup. 3 guys in the 7K range, 2 guys in the 9K, 1 guy in the 8. You can do this with 1 9K guy, 2 guys in the 8K range, maybe even 3 guys in the 8K range if you wanted to, and make it even more balanced. But considering that Jordan Spieth, Max Homa are going to be relatively chalky plays, both played solid here for the first round. Morning tee times tomorrow. I think that they're guys that you should be going to in cash. So that's going to be the cash build for this week. Let's go ahead and finish off on the questions before we hop on out of here. We have Stevenson who says, do you think Burns will be highly owned? So let me give you the number that I have on him, Steven, but I don't think he will be. Considering he shot, 1 over par today, I have him at 13.2%. So he's the lowest owned guy of anybody above $9,000. The second lowest owned would be Will Zalatoris because he shot 2 over par today. And the third lowest owned would be Sungjae Im, who shot even par today. So if you're looking for leverage, Sam Burns would actually be your guy. So keep that in mind if you're considering him. And Will Zalatoris and Sungjae Im would also be some leverage candidates. If Teshvik Kant's going LOL, I'm assuming that's talking about your comment before, which I thought was hilarious. And Matthew says, if Im's birdies are at 3.5 again tomorrow, how confident are you with the over on that? That's a good question. I wouldn't say I'm extremely confident in it because he wasn't able to get there today. But given the fact that he had 13 opportunities at a birdie, you got to think that he's making 4 of those. I mean, especially for somebody that's an above average putter like a Sungjae Im. So, I mean, I can't tell you that it's a lock, right? But if they give us that same number, I'm probably taking it again tomorrow. If that answers your question. So that's all I've got for the stream, guys. We will have a prize picks video dropping here in about a half an hour to an hour. So if you're looking for those picks, make sure to watch that video. If you haven't already liked the stream, would appreciate if you guys go ahead and do that. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you go ahead and do that as well. We are going to have even more Showdown streams for rounds 3 and 4. And of course, all kinds of prize picks content and golf content for the rest of the golf schedule. So I appreciate you. As I said, thanks for all of the support here. Best of luck for all of your round 2 builds, and let's get this cash.